What a friend we have in Jesus. A few measures of that we heard this morning from one of our great worship musicians, Kristen Giffen. And you're watching 7 Minutes with the Savior, Pastor Randy Fry, Gower Christian Church. Here in the sprawling media complex of Gower Christian Church. Today's an interesting day and an important day on the calendar for me. It's the 81st anniversary of the martyrdom of Dietrich Bonhoeffer. 81 years ago, April 9th, 1945, Dietrich Bonhoeffer was executed by the Nazis for his opposition, his active opposition to what the Nazis were doing in Germany and, of course, throughout the world. And he was an amazing man because he continued to run a seminary while in the midst of all that was going on. And he was a prolific writer even after he was in prison. And I wanted to share, so it's a feast day. I don't think the Catholics treat it as a feast day, but like for the Episcopalian Church and other churches, higher church traditions, this day is a feast day honoring Dietrich Bonhoeffer. Anglican Church, I think, is another one that observes it. It's simply a day where this great Christian pastor is remembered for especially his concern for justice and in his active opposition of what the Nazis were doing. Bonhoeffer was a prolific writer, and I wanted to recommend 3 books to you. I'm going to put these on the screen and see how they show up. There you go. So, his most important work is called The Cost of Discipleship. Here is my very well-worn copy of The Cost of Discipleship, which is overall, he begins with a discussion about costly grace versus cheap grace, seeing that a lot of churches in his time, and I think he would say today also, offer cheap grace. And he talks about costly grace. Here's what he wrote. Costly grace is the gospel which must be sought again and again, a gift which must be asked for, the door at which a man must knock. Such grace is costly because it calls us to follow, and it is grace because it calls us to follow Jesus Christ. It is costly because it costs a person his life, his or her life, and it is grace because it gives a man or woman the only true life. It is costly because it condemns sin, and grace because it justifies the sinner. Above all, it is costly because it cost God the life of his Son. Above all, it is grace because God did not reckon his Son too dear a price to pay for our life, but delivered him up for us. Costly grace is the incarnation of God. And he goes on a little bit further. Costly grace confronts us as a gracious call to follow Jesus. It comes as a word of forgiveness to the broken spirit and the contrite heart. Grace is costly because it compels a man to submit to the yoke of Christ and follow him. It is grace because Jesus says, "My yoke is easy and my burden is light." So, costly grace, it's basically, after his reflection on grace, it's his theological reflections and study on the Sermon on the Mount, Matthew 5 through 7. So it's great stuff. Let me put those books back on. Another one is very fascinating. It's called Letters and Papers from Prison, and it's exactly that, a collection of poems, of theological papers, and just personal letters where he reflects on his experience, his imprisonment, and continued encouragement to people. And then Life Together is his thoughts on the fellowship, on what it means to be church. Good stuff. And I recommend all three of those books to you. Life Together is a great introductory book because it's much easier reading. It's a shorter book. But his, penultimate work, his ultimate work is The Cost of Discipleship. Here's my opinion. Every serious Christian needs to take the time to read The Cost of Discipleship, and really, it's a dense book. You can only read 3 or 4 pages at a time before you got to stop and think about what he's saying. So, I wanted to share that with you. Prayer concerns. We continue to pray for the family of Amanda Fagan, who died very unexpectedly here a couple of weeks ago. We are praying for the family of Harper Anderson. Harper Anderson was this 8th grade girl in King City, but we've learned that she's got some connections here to Gower. One of our congregation members' cousin is married to her mom, and the principal over at our middle school is an uncle to her. So Gower has some connections. We're praying for that family. We're praying for the family of Joyce Moss. This is Chelsea Phipps's grandmother, passed away on Easter Sunday. We are praying for Andy Greer, who received a liver transplant at the end of last week. Very excited about that for him. He's been on the transplant list for a long time. And so we want to just keep him in our prayers. Just a regular schedule of activities for us at Gower Christian this weekend. Sunday school at 9:15, worship at 10:30, and youth group at 6 o'clock. Once again, youth group is 3rd grade through high school. We do some stuff together, and we also separate into more age-specific groups. But we start out with a meal at 6, and then about 30 to 40 minutes of Bible discussion, or just talking about faith life, and then we end with worship on a typical Sunday night. So 6 to 7:30. Friends are always welcome, so we invite you to come. So thanks for watching. That really does it for me. Many of us are volunteering at the Special Olympics track and field meet, which is at the East Buchanan track this Saturday morning. It's still not too late to sign up for that. I've sent out a sign-up link to congregation members, but we are going to be in the community Saturday morning helping with Special Olympics track and field, so I'm excited about that. And that will be this Saturday morning. And I understand the track meet's going to happen rain or shine. So if you've signed up and volunteered, just prepare for intermittent rain. But there's really no way to reschedule it, so we're going to proceed forth with it. So that's all the news for this week. Thanks for watching. Until we meet again online or in person, I bid you peace.